Cool. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Think2Thrive podcast. As always, my name is Adrian. And today I have with me, very lucky to have with me, Aidan O Driscoll. Aidan, thank you and welcome to the show.
Great stuff. Thanks, Adrian.
Now, Aidan, just for those who don't know Aidan, Aidan is the founder of Align Consultancy and Agency, and also the very prestigious title of being one of the 30 under 30. Um, Aidan, I'm going to ask you to maybe do a little bit better of an introduction than I just did. So please take it away and tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. I also think it's funny, Aiden, Adrian. I'm sure you've been called Aiden loads of times, and I've been called Adrian loads of times. So
Tons
even
of
here,
time.
I'm waiting for you to mess up and call me your own name. So, um, but yeah, no, a background about me. So yeah, I founded Align. We kind of just go by Align now. Um, just under 5 years ago. But like before that, I like I could go into the kind of business side, or I could go into the whole story of how it happened. So I know I was listening to your last episode, and Mark Victor Hansen was saying that he when he was 9 years old, he wanted a really expensive bike, and his dad was like, "No chance that's happening." So at 9, he started selling greeting cards. I think he was saying, and you kind of show that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. So happy to say I started younger than him, so I should end up selling maybe even 600 million books if I ever decide to sell books. Um, but yeah, when I was 6 years old, I had 20 quid and I went to the €2 shop and I bought €20 worth of stock. And then on my road, I sold it for €60 that day,
Mhm,
and pretty good margin, no
mhm.
overheads, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I realized it's a really good way to make money. So I did that, I think, 20, 30 times that summer. And I profited about 400, 500 quid.
Oh,
So
wow.
that actually paid for my sweets for the rest of the year and for my stock the year after. So I was I did that, and it was, what was very funny was my friends who I would have sold to back then say to me, like one of them said to me recently, like, "It's so good that you used to do that for us." I'm like, I made so much money. But they didn't realize, which I think is also kind of funny. But then, yeah, when I turned 12, I started a paper route. So that was quite interesting because there was a lot of early business learnings that I only can now relate to. So
Mhm.
in terms of like networking, so getting to know people, getting them to trust you early on, getting people to pay up front, because how was I going to cash flow 100 papers as a 12-year-old? So having to explain that to people, and also, oh well, what if you steal it, or what if you don't come back? Cool, well, I'll be here next week and you don't have to own me now because I'm going to be around. So that
Yeah.
kind of thing of duration of time as well, which everyone in sales knows. You might meet someone a year and a half ago and they start doing business with you now. So there's all that kind of stuff involved as well. And then, yeah, being firm on your price. So I used to charge 50 cent per delivery per paper, and people would argue, they'd be like, well, I'm getting 4 papers, but you're only coming here once. I should only pay you 50 cent. Now, haggling with a 12-year-old is a bit insane, in my opinion, especially over something like 150.
Yeah.
But I held firm, and I was doing that for about 4 years.
Mhm.
So I saved up a nice bit of money from that. And that was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial journey, I suppose. And then I started working in a cafe in Lucan, which is where I'm from. And within about 6 months, all the other staff had kind of left through different things. And I then trained up as a barista. And then after we had new staff come on board, after about a year, I had mentioned this to the owners that when they weren't there, things ran a lot smoother. And I don't know whether it was a people were stressed thing, or whether everyone was trying to do everything and it kind of just messed with the flow. So I said to them, let me manage it for the weekend and see how it goes.
Mhm.
And they were delighted with how it went. Sales were up, everyone was happy, staff were happy, which is important as well. And then I said to them, I want to do this at the weekends. So I got a whole extra euro an hour pay to manage it at the weekends. And then when I was 18, I ended up getting another job offer in an office in sales. And I went to the owner and said, look, I'm going to give you my week's notice. And he said, no, 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 you can't leave. We've just sold this cafe with you as part of the going concern. I was like, well, I don't know if you can sell me. Like, I don't know if that's a thing. So I gave 2 weeks notice then, and the new owner had rang me and asked me how much to get me to stay, which was great, but I then had my eyes set on sales.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to get a job in a place called Vision Branding, which did signage and environmental branding for a lot of the big companies. So I went in there. Within about 6 months, I'd made the biggest sale the company had ever had to that point. And I went to the owner and said, look, if I'm left to my own devices, I can do this on repeat. So he kind of enabled me to do that. And I continued to bring in bigger sales. I also spotted a different market opportunity that we had kind of cross skills that could work in that. And within the 3.5 years, we trebled in revenue. So my sales in that last year were 3.4 million, which was more than the turnover of the business when I started. So then COVID happened and everything else, and I gave in notice to go back to college because I didn't know what the world was going to be like. And I'd never finished my college degree because I was doing so well in sales. I was like, who needs a degree? I still half feel that way. I then did a master's and everything else, but I think education is very much a choice for different people. I think whether you want to do that, whether you want to just go into sales, whether you want to go into a trade. So yeah, I think now from having the benefit of experience, I don't know if I would have done the master's, because when I started the master's, I started the business, which was at the time Aidan's Consultancy Agency.
Okay.
Terrible name. That's when you and I met. I think you knew that name.
Yes, yeah.
Shocking. And I know in Ireland they say put your name next to something. They don't usually mean your first name. But I learned that mistake. And yeah, so I started the business as I started the master's. So I was working maybe 14, 16 hours a day. And I'd work 7 days a week. On Sunday, I'd only work 8 hours. So that was like my day off.
It's like after, yeah.
Yeah, it was. And what was funny, I started my relationship with my fiance at the same time. Within like a week of starting the master's, starting the business, everything all at once, because I'm a very intense type of guy. And we were together about 6 months, and I said to her, I'm not going to work tomorrow. And she cried. She was so happy for me. That's when I look back, so insane that one, she was putting up with that, and two, that I thought that was normal. But at the time, I just needed to do it. So at that point, I was just working away, doing the master's. I got a first in the master's. The business was growing. I was hiring. So it was all going really well. We're engaged. Like it all worked out, but pretty intense few years,
Bit of stress in there as well, Aidan, I'd say. Was there? Or?
Yeah, well, I don't think I had grey hair at the start. You can see the video very, very along the sides. So no, for sure, stressful, especially when I set up. I would say we now because we're a team and everything else. But when I set up, as a sales consultant, so to help people with their sales. And someone said to me, "Did I have enough grey hair to call myself consultant?" And at the time, I didn't. Now I definitely do. But
you're doing the opposite to the Just for Men, Aidan. You're putting the grey in, yeah.
Yeah, the experience.
Whereas I'm trying to get the grey out.
But yeah, I'm only 27. So when people meet me generally with this grey hair, they're thinking mid-30s. And I use that to my advantage a lot when I started the business when I was like 23, 22, 24, because I looked that bit older. People thought I was maybe 28, 29, but they give you a little bit more credit. But people definitely underestimate you then if they find out that you're a lot younger. So I'm getting up to that point now where it's okay that I'm 27. But yeah, we went from being a sales consultancy to then saying, I said to businesses, look, I won't just tell you how to sell, I'll do it for you. So we then became outsourced sales, and that actually took off quite well. Within about 6 months, I had hired someone part-time. Within another 4 months, I had hired someone full-time. So it was starting to really ramp up. And there was a few things I made mistakes. So one, I hired my best friend. And everyone tells you, don't hire your best friend. And I think everyone always said, no, this is different. This is my best. And it always goes wrong. So for the listeners, do not hire your best friend, no matter what. So that was its own issues that I had to deal with. But what I realized when we were doing the outsourced sales part, that we were going to, like, I know you were involved in rental cars and stuff. So let's say if we were going up against you, you had that intricate industry knowledge where you knew all of the pain points, you knew all of the value. And we were doing this for different companies almost on contract. So we'd never get that learned experience. So when it came to 50-50 between one and the other, the person with the intricate industry knowledge would get there and they'd win the business. So kind of pivoted again a little bit in terms of, okay, the hardest thing is getting in front of those people. It's getting that opportunity. It's getting to pitch to the right person, someone who's actually looking to buy. That's the hard work, because there's a lot of high paid salespeople who aren't willing to cold call and do all of the extra hard work. If they're in front of you, they can close, but getting them there is a different thing. So we then focused, that was our business, and it is now. It's outsourced business development. So we're working with different businesses across all different sizes, from million turnover to billion turnover, to get their sales team in front of people who want to buy their product. That's what we do.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I know I've worked in sales for many years as well, and that prospecting is the most painful piece of the whole sales cycle. In my opinion, I'm like the let's say the overpaid person that you mentioned who will close when the person is in front of you, but it's that sort of the dedication in order to do that on repeat ad nauseum for hours and hours and hours in order to create the list of people that are warm prospects. That for me, that's always been the most painful piece of the whole sales process.
Yeah, well, obviously now with the likes of AI and everything else and tech that's available to us, a lot of the manual work can be taken away. So like the list building, all that sort of stuff, we use softwares for that. We use a software called Zoom Info, which is a data enrichment software. So if I'm looking for, let's say you might have been selling into either CFOs or operations directors within, so let's say it was pharma. So you can basically get down into the nitty gritty of pharma, operations director, 200 to 500 staff, get all of that. And then we can get their email and their business mobile. So all that work that it would have taken you days on LinkedIn to find out and all these other things, now that's all very quick and kind of itemized. So then our team, they're making targeted calls. They're having a little bit extra time to actually research who they're ringing. So why would it be applicable to that company, or has there been relevant news and all that sort of stuff? So it's not just that we're ringing 100 or 1,000 people a day. We're ringing 50 a day. That's the goal for the team. But they're to be good conversations. You're going to find their value there. And there's another client we've just started with, and I asked I asked one of the lads, how are you getting on with that? Oh, well, the big value point that they told us, we've been told that that's like 3 years ago, I think. So now we're like, okay, we need to now go back and feed that back and now find out what else we can be working on, what else we can be pitching. So there's that kind of continual learning aspect as well. So I know you said it's monotonous and that was the treacherous thing. But even with our team, they'll have 4 or 5 different clients they work on in a week. So if you were only ringing for one client, 100%, you'd hate your life after like 3 months, because you can only say the same thing too many times and you just feel like a parrot. Whereas when you're working on different clients and you're getting to try different industries, there's always that kind of learning aspect. There's always a little bit of extra challenge and it's more fun. So I think that's how we kind of keep it interesting, because I know when I started the business, in terms of the business development side, people said you won't keep your staff. They won't be with you that long, because it's that type of nature of business. Now I have people who are with me 3 years and we're only open less than 5. So we're doing something right.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Retention is a big part of it, because you know as well as I do, the cost of bringing somebody else on board and up to speed and whatever is just it's huge. Yeah, so if you can retain, you're much better off. And do you do full cycle then as well, Aidan? If somebody was looking for you to then also not just produce the warm list, but also go through the rest of the process and ultimately close?
So we make the cold calls, we set up the meetings. That's where we stop. Now with some clients, we might follow up after they've kind of done their closing piece, just to kind of get feedback and stuff. But the closing side is 100% client led. And I know that there's a better success rate with that. So let's say if there's a salesperson who's now leaving and then you're dealing with someone else, so a lot of the companies you'd be dealing with are kind of 50 to 100 people as well. So either the managing director can still be involved, or someone else will take up the mantle in terms of being able to to do that. What I have found in terms of even myself, founder-led sales, when the owner or the managing director is on, the conversion rate is way higher because they really believe in what they're doing. There's a reason for that business, and you can feel that passion through the phone or through the video or in person.
Well, you also can feel when a founder is selling, because they're selling from their stomach. Yeah. They, as Mark said, no worky, no eaty. Yeah. So if you don't work, you don't eat, and that's very much true for founders. If you don't make that sale, that's it. There's no money coming through, and there's nobody going to help you.
For me, I eat a lot, so I sell a lot.
Excellent. Come here, I wanted to go back, and thank you very much for that. The when you were 6, yeah. I find I've spoken to and I've interviewed quite a few people over the years, and I always, not always, but mostly find that there's been an influence for, let's say, young, I won't say baby Aidan, but young Aidan, somebody in your circle or in your immediate family who was either a business owner, an entrepreneur, or something that tweaked something with you. Well, was there anything like that, or was it just I'm going to buy 20 quids worth of sweets and see what happens?
There wasn't an entrepreneur in my family, or in my parents' friend group even. So there wasn't that sort of influence. What I did get from my dad was an ungodly way of work ethic, in terms of, when I was younger, my dad would work like 100 hours a week and he wouldn't give out about it. He just, that was the job and that's what he'd do. So I think the ability to just overwork is a thing that's helped me. But on the entrepreneur kind of side, no. Now, to be fair, my mom is very good at kind of psychology stuff. So she'd always, like, me and her would have, when I was like 5, would have conversations about people and why they're doing certain things and all that sort of stuff. So I might have got the ability to spot an opportunity. Like, my mom would haggle in Londis. So like, there'd be 2 or 3 croissants. It might be 4 o'clock, and she'd say, "You're not going to sell them. I'll give you €1 for the 3 of them." Like, a Londis, a place where they can't just discount on the spot, but she tried. So I definitely got the chance your arm stuff from my mom. So I think the sweet shop thing, half of it was chance in my arm. If nobody buys the sweets, I'll eat them. And I can at least blame it then on, I plan to sell them. But no, I think the learning from different business owners and stuff, that's only something I've, in the last kind of 4 or 5 years, got to do.
Okay. It's interesting because there's not nearly always, but there's quite often there's a spark. There's something that twigs. I think somebody I spoke to the other day, it was their uncles. Some other people, it was their father or their mother or whatever. What, your father works very hard. What does he do for a living?
He was in the ESB, so he's retired now. He worked for 42 years in the ESB. So he started working fixing alarms, and then I think at the age of 30 he became an apprentice. So he hadn't had a formal education. Then he did the trades in the ESB, and by the time he left, I think he was the highest qualified electrician they had working with them. So, you know, the power plants that would power the data centers. Yes, he was one of the people in Ireland who was able to operate them.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So
that's
no, go for it.
I was going to say that's a great example of that. You know, education doesn't end when you finish school. You know, you if you've got the right work ethic and you've got the right mindset to keep going and grow and to learn, because I'm a firm believer that that's what life is all about. Is about growing. Yeah, it's about trying new things. And so that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I know he then did post-grad stuff in UCD and I think DIT. So he was definitely an advocate for continual learning, but also just the work ethic was insane. So to me, if I work 60 hours, that's a light week. My partner, she's Spanish. She thinks I'm insane. She thinks I should be having a siesta.
Mañana, or that sort of. I don't have too much Spanish. No, that's cool. The haggling piece from your mom, I think that's interesting, because my mom always says as well, it says, if you don't ask, you don't get, you know. a sort of intrinsic something that built into salespeople is they'll just ask whether they get the sale or don't get the sale. I found through the years there's an awful lot of people who actually talk themselves out of getting a sale because they tend to give too much information, or they don't know when to stop, and they just keep going and never actually ask for the sale. So yeah, just asking.
That definitely helped me in my life. And even I try and teach my partner now to haggle and to negotiate. We were over in Milan and there was a market and she wanted 3 things. I think it added up to 42 quid. And I told her to offer 35. And she turned to them and she said, would you do it for 35? And they said, no, it's already discounted. She turned to me and she said, it's already discounted. I was like, okay, would you do 37? And your won't start giving out to me. And I was like, look, it's no problem. We don't need it. We don't need the stuff. We can go. And then she's like, wait. We'll do it for 39. I said, no, 37. Because she'd given out to me. So then my pride was hurt, you know. And we got it for the, and what we say is like a $5 or whatever. And she starts saying, you're not a gentleman. A gentleman wouldn't do this. And I said, well, I'm going to donate this €5 to charity in your name. Thank you very much. But I was teaching her how to negotiate, and now she tries it with stuff. So me and her, I'll do this if you do this, and she's starting now. So like when we do have kids, 100%, it's going to be chance your arm as much as you can. I'll never get annoyed at them for chancing their arm and ask the question.
Yeah. You don't get anything if you don't ask. The piece when you were working in the coffee shop, I think, for me, anybody who's ever worked for any length of time in the hospitality industry, not just because I come from the hospitality industry, but anybody who's worked in hotels, cafes, restaurants, bars, stuff like that for any length of time, I think is somebody that I generally would hire if I was hiring, because I know what they've gone through, and I know to survive there's a certain amount of work that has to be done of very, very unglamorous things, especially in restaurants and cafes. But
I actually said that to someone recently. They were a sales director and they were hiring, and I had mentioned, I think anyone who makes coffee, maybe not this like in the last 2 years, because people are a bit odd now working in the coffee shops. They don't want to chat to you anymore. But I know when I was making coffee, I'd be speaking to everyone. I'd be learning their life story. They'd be learning mine. And I think anyone who kind of had to do that or got to do that has an appreciation for what people are going through in their days. For sometimes a good time to chat, sometimes it's not, because someone might have been really nice to you yesterday, but then they're having a bad day, so leave them alone. And a lot of that is transferable skills over to sales.
It's life skills. It's dealing with people. You can transfer it to any sort of industry whatsoever. How how did you not get stuck, Aidan? There's a question, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was the old question is how much did they start paying you to give up on your dreams? Yeah. And for an awful lot of people, once they start earning the few bob or whatever, you get stuck. You get addicted to the drug of that money coming to you for earning a living is relatively easy in some ways, but actually pushing yourself and succeeding to go away from that to down the entrepreneurial track, it's not something that everybody has. So I'm really interested, how did you know at such a young age to especially when they're going, how much do you want, and I'll pay you to stay?
I suppose I've always had that kind of abundance mindset of there will always be more, and there will always be more. So kind of just go for it and see. But I think obviously from just a position of self-confidence, I've always been very confident. No matter what I do, everything goes wrong, I'll be able to get a job. I'll be able to do this. So I've a lot of confidence in myself. But how did I not get stuck? To be fair, I probably almost did in my last job that I left. Like obviously we've been scaling up in revenue. I was opening their office in London. I was traveling a lot. I was over in America. I was over in Italy with work, which was great. But I realized I wasn't building that for me. And the money was good, but I also have a very good friend network. So a lot of people, like, they lose touch with their friends after either school or college. But I can fortunately say that the friends I made in first year in college, we meet up every week still. So those were people who knew me before I was making loads of money. They knew me while I was making loads of money. And then they were also the people to be like, hey, I think you were actually way happier when you weren't doing that. So that was one of the things of me going back to college. One of the lads said to me, he was like, you didn't get to actually live the college experience. You were too busy skipping forward to be ahead of everyone that you didn't actually get to do any of the enjoy life and relax stuff. So when are you going to do that? I said, well, when I'm 40 and retired. I was like, well, we're all going to be working. So who are you going to be with? And I was okay, and that was pretty fair. So I was like, okay, if I go back to college and kind of reset myself almost, because I had kind of broken all barriers in terms of what was the norm. Like, I was flying business class to New York at like 20, and I didn't come from a family of money. So to me, to everyone else around me, that was insane. I'd go into the shop, I'd spend $2,000 and be okay. And again, I did not save as much as I should have. I spent as soon as I earned, and that was definitely something I'd tell myself, was go back and save some of that money and be a lot better off for it. But the kind of not getting stuck element, I think it was naivety coupled with overconfidence. And also I kind of had that reset of I'm not happy. I won't be happy unless I really try doing my own thing. And I was very lucky in the last job. I had risen to a position high enough that I could kind of do almost all that I wanted. So, but I got to see the owner do whatever he wanted, and that to me was the most appealing. So, I would rather have $1 million in the bank and do whatever I want than have 100 million in the bank and have people tell me what to do. So, I think early on I knew I couldn't work in a corporate. I didn't think I could work for another person again, and now I know I definitely can't. So, like, I now have a team of 10 people full time, and it's not a formal, stuffy office in any sort of the word. But I'm happy, and I enjoy it. So, if you offered me $1 million a year as a job to do something, I wouldn't do it. I couldn't. I enjoy life way too much now. So, I think before I could get stuck, I knew what my priorities were. And I almost had that kind of midlife crisis when I was 20. So I was very fortunate to kind of experience all the trouble early.
That's interesting. The confidence piece, you mentioned that quite a few times. Where does that inner confidence come from?
Yeah, so when I was in school, I got bullied pretty bad. And I remember I used to try and be someone that people would like, and it never worked. And then I did transition year, which I recommend for everyone to do. And I remember going home one day and I was like, they don't like this me, they don't like that me. I don't think they're gonna like me at all. I'm just gonna be myself. And then I was myself, and I became really popular. Oh, it was painful almost, because I was like, oh, I could have done this the whole time. And I think it was that kind of precipice of age as well. Like, I think kind of 13 to 16, everyone's trying to conform and be the same. Then I was like, no, I'm just going to be myself. And then that worked. And I then became popular in college as well, from just being myself and being who I am and being authentic. And I kind of have just doubled down into that since, and just become very happy with myself and with obviously my ability, obviously making large sales at a young age. That gives you confidence. So all these little kind of ticks, everything that I've done right, I was like, that's a tick. And I don't really listen to the negative stuff, because everyone makes mistakes. So to fixate on them, no. So every little tick keeps growing and growing and growing. And now, unfortunately, I'm almost too confident. But it works out for me so far.
Is there such a thing? I wonder, is there such a thing? You know, and you're probably the polar opposite to a lot of people in that confidence piece. You know, because I talk to people all the time about your confidence to do something comes from the image that you have of yourself within your mind. Yeah. And that picture that you have of yourself within your mind. And a lot of people have a real negative image of themselves, and an awful lot of people listen to the negativity, because it's so, for most people, it's so much easier to think the negative than it is the positive. And when you're thinking these thoughts over and over and over again within your mind, they're what's forming that image that you have of yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
So to meet somebody who's pretty much the polar opposite of that is fantastic. But it'd be lovely to be able to bottle that and sell it, wouldn't it? That would be that confidence.
Yeah, that'd be the professional speaking stuff. Like in my head, I'm 6 foot, I'm skinny, I'm tall. You know, in real life, I'm a little bit shorter than that. But all of my friends, they're all like 6'1", 6'2". But in my head, it's almost, you know, like a little dog when they think they're a big dog.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
it's almost that when I'm with my friends, I'm the same size, and then I see a photo of us together, I'm like, I'm short, but at the time, I'm the big dog too. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the confidence thing, again, just good things have happened, believing that it's for me and I did that. I think when people have a low locus of control, I think that's when they're more upset. So I think when you say, oh, what's for me won't pass me by, and all these sorts of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I think that doesn't work. I think if you're like, I'm going to do this because I want to do this, and you just double down and do it, it's because of you then. Now, yeah, there's an element of luck, but they say that luck is when hard work meets opportunity. So continue to work hard, you'll eventually meet opportunity and things will go well. So that has me happy enough.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very good point. So for anybody listening, it's not about, let's say, sitting around waiting for the ideal opportunity to come along, because that never happens. Yeah. Or three of them come along at once, like Dublin Bus. But no, the it's about action, isn't it? It's about doing something, you know, just because it mightn't be the right thing. Yeah, you might change your mind 6 months later, a year later, or whatever, and that's okay. You don't have to lock into something that's going to be the one thing forever.
But even on that point, as like running the business, I doubt what I'm doing every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I might have a week of it that I'm like, oh, I could be doing this, I could be doing that. And it's funny because at the start, my partner used to be really worried about me. She'd like, oh, I found this job and this and that. And now she's like, she's seen so many of the cycles, let's say, that she's like, you're going to be fine next week. I'm not, she won't even entertain me talking about it now. She doesn't want to listen to it. So now it's like, I know you'll be buzzing next week. And yeah, there's down weeks. And I think it's, if you really like what you do, that's what gets you through. I think if you're chasing money or status or something like that, those weeks are the weeks that are going to trip you up. But if you have that kind of mission in you, that this is what it's going to be and this is why, and that you enjoy it, those weeks you can get through them. Whereas when you're chasing something else and it's not your idea or it's not this, I think that's sometimes what happens. People pivot too much away from what they wanted to do. And then they have that hard period. They're like, why am I even doing this anymore? And they don't have the passion for it to keep them going. Because when all the fuel runs out, the emissions are passion. And sometimes you got to run on steam, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned about control earlier on, which I thought was good. People, a lot of people are in jobs that they don't like, that they're doing things that they're not really happy with, and I boil it down to is because they're not in control. They can't decide. In a lot of large corporate environments, for example, you can't even decide what picture you have on your desk. You're not allowed to have personal effects on your desk that might distract you from tapping the keys. But when you're in an environment like that where you have so little control over what happens, of course it's degrading, it's demotivating, etc. And it's just not. So I love the fact that you touch on control, that you have the control to design the type of life that it is that you want to have. And it's not unique to you either, Aidan, or to me. It's everybody has that. Once, if they would realize they have that power within them in order to do what they really want to do.
Yeah. And no, don't get me wrong. Some people, they love that not having control. And some people, my mom said it to me recently, oh, they just love moaning. They're a moaner. If everything went well for them, they'd still moan. They're just a moaner. So, like, on that side of it as well, some people actually kind of enjoy the misery, and that suits some people. So, like, everyone's different. So the highs and lows, I know someone who worked, let's say, a 9 to 5 job, and their employee 1 of 4,000. I think they would have a heart attack or an aneurysm living my life because of the swings of the ups and downs and the everything else. But to me, it's almost like, I think as an entrepreneur, you almost live in this 10% standard deviation. So nothing is really, really bad and nothing is really, really good. So everything's kind of like this. It's kind of all just going along. Whereas someone else, it might be all the way up here and all the way down here. It's a lot to deal with. So as you kind of get through in terms of experience and age in entrepreneurship, it becomes this 10% deviation. That's all it is. So for some people, that would be horrible, but that's what I thrive in.
Yeah. No, but that's a nice way to put it, that 10%. Living in the 10%, because it's there are very much lots of highs and lows being an entrepreneur. It's like everything is awesome, oh crap, everything is horrible, from one week to another, or one day to another, 1 minute to another, and sometimes. The job that you went into after the cafe, where you were doing the sales for the marketing company, you mentioned about what was it again? About you managed to triple, or help them to triple the income over a 2-year or 3-year period. For them, you were late teens at that stage, or early 20s?
I joined them when I was 18, and I worked there until I was 22.
Okay, so that first sale, that largest sale that the company had ever seen, that you said earlier on, tell me, how did that come about? And was it a fact that these were clients of theirs beforehand and they just didn't ask, or was it?
No, they hadn't been doing projects with them. There was a previous thing that they had done, I think 5 years previous, and it didn't go well, and they weren't happy. They weren't talking to each other. But then it was on a market that I saw that had a bit more extra opportunity, and there wasn't many competitors in the space. So I asked to quote it. We quoted it, and I was in talks with, it was a QS that I was dealing with, a quantity surveyor. And what was funny was, it was actually during my college exams that I took the call, because I knew they'd be calling me to either give me the yes or the no. So I literally walked out of a college exam early to find out, am I going to make loads of commission or not? And I've been dealing with them like through the study of exam, through everything else, and just constantly being on the phone with them, coffees, everything, just to make sure. And then we got the go ahead, we got the green light. But then it was also, and it was the big thing, was staying involved in the deal. So as it was being delivered, being there, as issues were arising, being there. So then, to that person, I was a glowing light of someone they'd happily deal with. So then they introduced me to other people in their business. And then that happened across businesses. So someone in this job title has someone they went to college with in that job title. So they introduced me there. So it became a deliver, say what you're going to do and deliver on it, and things will happen. And that's what ended up working out for us.
I think that's a great lesson for many people. The sale doesn't finish when the contract is signed, when they say they're going to do it. It's until it's delivered, and to sort of stay in the process until then. That's super important.
No, and that's why people don't trust salespeople, because they sell them the dream, and then as the dream is being manufactured or delivered, they're gone, and it's like, well, no, this is now a nightmare. So if you're able to be confident enough to sell it, stay around and watch them be as happy as they are in it. Now, for different sales roles, that means that sometimes the deal size might need to be larger to justify it. Like, you need to obviously cost up time and all that sort of thing. But again, even if it's only a small project, from small acorns become big trees. And that was a big kind of energy that I had, was you don't need to give me the big project. Give me the little one. Let me show you that we can do the little one, and then we get a shot at the big one. And people want the big one immediately. It doesn't happen like that.
Is this sort of, let's say, knowledge looking backwards, Aidan, or do you think at the time when you were doing that, because you're at 18, you're green really when it comes to being out in I know you'd had a good bit of experience behind you with the cafe and stuff like that, but that's a completely different kettle of fish going into something like that.
So for me, I was obviously, I was working from back to the paper route even. I was getting people's money. I was going and getting the papers, and I was delivering them on time. And I was doing that over and over again. And from that, again, people would say, "Oh, have you knocked into so and so?" No, they didn't want to deal with me. I was speaking to them, knock into them again. And then so like over the years of me doing it, the numbers were growing. The streets didn't change. I was on the same roads, but it was more people had that trust and everything else. And again, it was from small beginnings, then begets larger. So that was from like 12. Then when I was in the cafe, just dealing with people nicely, and they like, you might not get a tip the first time, second time, third time, fourth time, but then you consistently deliver, you're happy, you talk to people, you get to know them, then you get good tips. And I did. Like, I think we measured what the tips were in the weekend versus, like, so based on sales and all this sort of stuff, and the tip percentage was way higher at the weekends. Not just because people were happier, but because they were getting a better service because I was there.
It's treat people well, listen to what they have to say, and engage with them. It's pretty straightforward. I was my wife showed me a clip there on TikTok or Instagram or something yesterday, and it was an Uber driver who was holding a lady in the back seat captive until she got her tip.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I mean that's just bananas. It's crazy. Sorry, it just pumped into my head when you mentioned tips.
Yeah, I would refuse to give them the coffee until they tipped me. But again, tip culture, American tip culture has creeped into Ireland, and they swing around the little iPad now, and it's 15, 20, 25, and you have to press no or custom amount to move on, which is crazy. Like, I get it, it's a hard cost of living for everyone. But yeah, I remember a lot of stuff was cash. I think back when I was in the cafe, which was, I was 15, so 12 years ago, 2014, a lot was cash. There was some card sales, but a lot was cash. I don't think people see cash like that anymore.
Not since COVID. I mean, everything has gone contactless since COVID.
Do you know what's hilarious? When COVID was happening, I said, do you know what? The banks could shut and all this sort of stuff. I'm going to go and get cash. So I went to the ATM and I took $2,000 out in cash. And then COVID was happening and nobody wanted to accept cash. So then I was useless.
That was good thinking, though. It was good thinking. No, yeah. So it didn't work, but win some, lose some. You still have the $2,000 to go back and put in the bank. COVID was a strange thing altogether. So the where you are at the moment, Aidan, your team of 10 people working with you.
Yeah.
You're based in the south side of Dublin, isn't it?
Yeah. So we have our own floor in Hermitage's house, so it's 1,000 square foot office. So yeah, we have a 5-year lease. So we have a lease that's longer than our existence, which is obviously was a scary thing to sign last Christmas. So about 12, 13 months ago now. So and our previous office was maybe a tenth of this space. So we've definitely scaled up, and kind of it's with the last year was the confidence in the business of let's go for it, and we're going for it, and we've scaled up in revenue, we've scaled up in everything.
So and so do you obviously with that sort of an expansion, you must have one eye or probably two eyes on the future as to what's the future for Align. You're planning to grow it considerably or maintain it where it is, or what's your plan?
I'd say the plan in this office is to get about 20 people working actively, and then open up offices in Manchester, in Canada, in Australia. Manchester purely because London, I think, is played out, and people from Manchester can sell into London. London people can't sell into Manchester; they don't want to deal with them. And people from Manchester can sell into Scotland, and vice versa. So I think, and there's a nice kind of Irish population in Manchester as well, be it first, second, or third generation. So that's why that's where we have our eyes set on next, is kind of UK expansion. But we're still growing in Ireland, and we're still dealing with new businesses and new industries. So The overall goal is to build up to a solid team here, and then almost have like nucleus offices in different places with teams being built up there. I don't want to be a 500-person company, because once you involve that, you lose the culture. No matter how hard you try, it'll be different. So if I can solidly maintain who we are, the culture, the message, the mission, and then just do that in different countries, that's where I see the scale.
How do you see the challenge of doing that? Because obviously a lot of the culture comes from the top down, I believe, within an organization. So it comes from you as being the figurehead or the head of the organization. And that's easier done if you're in one location. But how do you transfer that then over into if you're in another location?
Yeah, so it's about having some of the day ones as the earlier staff, the early adopters managing those offices, who, again, they have drank the Kool-Aid, who believe in the mission, who believe in what we're doing. And though the locations we've picked are strategic in terms of people in our office have indicated wanting to go to those different places. So rather than leave and try and find another job, do this over there. Now I'll travel over and stuff and help set it up, but they know what we're doing over here. So that's where I kind of think that'll work.
Mm-hmm. If they were to move over, let's say somebody moves to Manchester, would they become a franchisee of Align, or would it be?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Yeah.
Okay, and then they're responsible for the growth of it themselves within that.
We'd help. We'd set up meetings for them and everything else. But yeah, like what we've definitely realized over the last few years is we've built a process. We've built an onboarding system of being able to get people to be efficient in cold calling and business development very quickly, and be able to add revenue to businesses very quickly. So it's a proven model that's proven scalable.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Scalability important. We're coming towards the end. We're not at the end just yet, but we're coming towards the end. A question I ask everybody that comes on the show is about books. Yeah, I'm a big believer in furthering education, continuing education the whole time. I'm surrounded by books in what I'm interested in. What about you? Do you have anything that's sort of your go-to Bible, let's say, other than the Bible?
See, I don't, which is terrible, because there's so many sales books, and I'll listen on Audible and stuff. I worked with a business coach for a while, and he had kind of suggested different books. So I know Simon Sinek, The Power of Why, is a very good book. I'm sure you've read it. I think everyone in entrepreneurship has read it, and it again, for us, it's why are we doing this? Like that, I think if I was gonna put my nail to the post on one, that would be it. But I think there's so many different kind of perspectives and stuff. Like I remember everyone was telling me to listen to or to read the 48 Laws of Power. I thought it was terrible. Like there's maybe like 5 or 6 that are halfway applicable, but it's also you're not able to take into account culture on it. So like in some cultures, certain things are expected or demanded. Whereas if you did that in another culture, which is according to 48 Laws of Power, they wouldn't do business with you. So I think lived experience is way better. So I used to listen to more audibles and stuff in the car, but then I realized I didn't turn my brain off at all, because the free time which I would have had in the car, which was to think, was then consuming knowledge, which then meant any other spare time was then digesting that and everything else. So I actually, I'll go to talks and speaking events and that sort of thing. But I try not to read too much, because I think it'll activate my brain too much to think about way too many things, and I'm better off focusing on the few things that I'm on.
Yeah. Well, each to their own. We all learn in different ways, as you say. One of my favorite ones is not right behind me at the moment, but my recommendation, Good to Great, is the name of it. I think it's a Jim Collins, a fantastic book. For me, it's a business Bible. My favorite piece out of it is what he calls the hedgehog theory. And it's about finding, and I think you've found it, let's say, is finding that one thing that you can be the best in the world at, as a company, and doubling down, like you said, on that one thing. Because he tells the story of the fox and the hedgehog. And the fox is obviously super clever, very wily, can come up with all different things. But a hedgehog can do one thing and can do one thing better than anybody else, and that's curl up in a ball and stick its spikes out. And no matter what this fox does, all of these smart plans, etc., that it comes up with, every time it goes to get the hedgehog curls up in the ball and sticks its spikes out, and it wins. Yeah. So translating that analogy into business, he calls it the hedgehog theory. Yeah,
it's interesting. I think talk to my partner about this as well. There's a big thing in Irish people of being the underdog. That's like almost Irish culture, is being the underdog, and we always root for the underdog. So I like, if I'm looking at a soccer match and it's 5-1 odds, I want the person who shouldn't win to win. Whereas my partner's Spanish, they were colonizers. They're used to being the winner. So she's like, who's better? Them. I support them. And I think it's so funny. And I think that's why Irish people across the globe do really well in terms of running businesses, because they have that kind of underdog mentality of, I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care if the odds are stacked up. I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's it. It's a really good way of looking at it. I agree with you. The underdog thing is huge in Ireland. We love supporting the little guy until they get too big for the boots, and then we drag them back down.
Yeah. I've literally had people say that to me. They're like, "Oh, you're a bit too big for your boots now. I need to humble you in some sort of way."
You mentioned what was it earlier on about? Oh shoot, I wrote it down and now I've lost it. Oh yeah, sorry. I mentioned at the beginning being part of the 30 under 30.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and what sort of an impact did that have on your business?
So I was introduced from a person who was in it the year previous. Well, it was actually the year previous almost. So there was someone he'd be a friend of mine. His name's Dara Jordan, and he set up a business with his business partner when they were 16 in school. And by the age of 21, they had full-time adults working for them. So he was doing a talk in Maynooth online because it was COVID, and talking about his journey and stuff. And I was on it. And then there was the Dublin Tech Summit, I think it was. And he posted, I think, on LinkedIn that he was going to be there. So I texted him about meeting for a coffee. We chatted for about 3 hours. And when I was sitting beside him, he introduced me to the editor for that, or the writer for that, and said, "Hey, this guy's very interesting. You should talk to him." And we chatted to them, and they rang me, and they said, this was that year. They rang me and they said, "Look, you're 31. You're 31 out of 30 because there's 2 people who are turning 30, and this is their last chance. So you're for sure on it next year. But if someone can't come to the photo shoot, you're in," which is almost like horrible, but also good. It was tough. But then the following year, I was on the list, delighted to be on it. In terms of what impact it had, it definitely gave a little bit more esteem to the business, a little bit more impact. And it's like a nice accolade. So I think, especially in the earlier years of business, all the accolades matter, because there are all these little credibility checks, these little, okay, you must be doing something right. Okay, there's all these little ticks. So if you don't have the decades of experience, or if you don't have the Titan name, but the this and the that, all these little accolades add up and they make the difference. But it's not about one. Like 30 under 30 was great. There was other articles, there was other things, and they were all building towards a story, building towards an impact, and building towards an image.
Cool. Well, congratulations. It's been a while, but congratulations with it. I think it's an awesome thing to be part of.
I've actually introduced 2 friends who have been made the list as well. Because I think that the writer honestly relies on us being out there and spotting who the next person is. Like, I have a friend who was on it this year, I think it was. He is 28, turning over 2 million a year, and you'd never know it. But he keeps his cards close to his chest. He's a strong operator, but he's also a good friend of mine. So I was able to introduce him.
Yeah. Cool. What sort of business is it?
Oh, I can't give away too much.
Okay. I know, because I saw the.
Only because I mentioned his revenue, I won't give away.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's cool. I saw the list all right for this year, and there's one company that had 3 or 4 different people from the same company in it. I think it was 3, which I thought was cool, but it's a lot from one company.
Yeah.
Excellent. So
pay the list now, so I'm not gonna give out about it.
Okay, I'm conscious of your time, Aidan. We're coming up on sort of the hour mark. So a couple of questions just to finish off. You mentioned earlier on about giving back and or going back and giving some advice to yourself to save some of the money and not spending as much. Other than that, if you could go back to yourself, young Aidan, what advice would you give?
Probably every year needed different advice, because every year changes so much. I think when I was 18, yeah, I'd have told myself keep doing the same thing, but set aside 10-15% for savings, because I really enjoyed my time as well. So like there's very little that I regret. So there's only little 1% increment things that I'd advise myself on. I didn't take school that seriously, and I don't think I needed to in the end either. So like there's in terms of best advice, don't hire your best friend. I would have given myself that advice. And yeah, I think talking to myself the first time I had a wobble, in business of will I just keep doing this? It was funny. I had an offer from Salesforce as an account executive, and the base salary was 65, the OT was 130, and I was about a year into business. It was nowhere near that, and they said to me, "Look, and we've never let people go in mass layoffs." About 6 months later, they let go like 20% of their staff. So again, very fortunate that I did not take the job offer. But I think telling myself at the first wobble, you're going to have a million of these. They're normal. Talk to other people. And I think people in Ireland, they don't like to talk about when they're actually experiencing hardship or trouble. And I think when you do open up about it, nearly everyone does the same. They're then open to opening up about it. And so I think that would be my advice, would be to actually talk about it, talk about the wobbles, because there's someone who looks like they've made it or who has made it, who had all of those wobbles before as well. So being able to get that learned experience from someone else and make it a bit more relatable.
Yeah. Do you have a business mentor or a mastermind group that you're a part of by any chance? Or
I don't have I have a networking group that I'm in, and it's called the Dublin Network, and there's loads of different business owners in it, and people help each other get out of the business, and sometimes people just have a bitch, which is fair enough. But yeah, I've had so many different people I've worked with, and I can call friends that I would look up to in different ways. So I wouldn't have just one. I've surrounded myself with people who also work hard and go out and do things, and I think it kind of just brings that energy.
Cool. Good. Yeah. What is it? You become the average of the 5 people you surround yourself amongst, or something like that. Something along those lines. What would be your final words to the listeners, Aidan? Your parting message?
It's not that hard to set up or register a business. A lot of people are like, "Oh, but this is the setup process hard." I paid €200 to companysetup.ie to do all of the paperwork for me. So if that's what's keeping you back from doing it, spend 200 quid and get someone else to do it for you. But I think if you're going to do it, make sure you're passionate about it. There's loads of different ways to set up a business. You don't need to quit your job and go all in. You can do it on the side, build up a revenue for yourself. I didn't do that, but I have friends who built up revenues to their salary and then were comfortably able to leave their job. So there's loads of different ways of doing it. So just because my way was one way doesn't mean your way will be as well. So just give it a go.
Give it a go. That's a good one. Cool. And on that note, thank you very much for being on the show today. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks. I took a load of nuggets from that. I'm sure the listeners have also. Thanks for being so generous with your time, and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Cheers. We'll talk later.